We got Dinesh D'Souza back in the house. He is best-selling author, guy on TV, conservative commentator. You know, you guys all know Dinesh, but he's got two movies out right now. We're going to talk about that, plus all the latest stuff happening in this crazy election cycle and with this open Supreme Court seat and the rest of it. Dinesh, great to have you.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Great to be on the show.
So Infidel, which I know stars Jim Caviezel, who I think has done some great work in the past. Infidel is out now. You're the producer on this one. You made this movie. Tell us about the film a little bit, and also what it's like to move from doing more political docudrama kind of stuff into a straight-up feature film.
Well, the feature film has always been the gold standard of Hollywood, and Hollywood thinks that in that department they are supreme, they are invincible. And of course, they use the feature film, Hollywood does, to promote all kinds of ideological messages. So the villains of their movies are typically the business guy or the patriarchal dad or the sheriff or the small town pastor who turns out to be a secret member of the KKK. They've got these cartoon narratives. They never confront the real world. They never confront radical Islam. And so if they do a terrorist in a Hollywood movie, he's typically some Russian guy or he's Eastern European. So I wanted to challenge them in their own domain. And so my wife, Debbie, and I came up with this idea for a movie about religious persecution that would take a Christian guy, an American, who says something politically incorrect at an international conference on religion about Jesus, about God. This is not a Christian niche movie. It's got a lot of bad language in it. It's got extreme violence. It's R-rated. The idea here is to make a mainstream movie that reflects the gritty realism of the culture.
You know, Dinesh, this has been a dream of people on the right in news media and commentary for a long time. We often talk about this. I've been trying to say to everybody, and this is why I'm working with different friends on social media platforms that will actually respect the First Amendment and becoming a part of them and work, you know, but we've always, as you've said, wanted to challenge Hollywood and its domain here because it is absurd. I mean, you pointed out, and I mean, I used to work at the CIA, so I know what the actual bad guys are usually like, and they're not weirdly German accented guys in the mid 2000s with bleached blonde hair who are running around about how they're going to take over the world, which is what they did in the movie The Sum of All Fears, for example, right? They changed it from radical Islam in the Tom Clancy novel to some form of, you know, new neo-Nazis or some different version of that. Do you have a lot of conservatives that are saying, hey, Dinesh, and I don't just mean people in the media, I mean just out there, can I help? Can I get involved? I want to work on this. I want to give you money. I mean, are people flocking to your standard here a little bit?
It's hard to do, I have to admit. And it's partly because, you know, if Michael Moore makes a film or even Oliver Stone, they go to a Hollywood studio, they get $10 million or $20 million in their pocket, they go make the film. And the moment they made the film, they're booked on The View, The Today Show, and on, all the media outlets are open to them. For our side, you have to have a whole bunch of different skills that really don't go together. You need the legal skill to put it together. You need to have tremendous fundraising capacity. I mean, we raised almost $20 million to make this movie. You need to have the skill to make the movie and do it in a mainstream way. And then you have to be able to market it. So all those things are not easy to put together. We think we've got a small team that has the full package, but we'll see. We're testing it out and admittedly doing it in a very difficult environment. But our film has been doing really well. And on a per screen basis, it is the second highest film in the country right now.
And Dinesh, is the goal here, and I really applaud this effort because I've been wanting to do this for a long time and been saying that, and to your point, it's, yes, there are these movies that are, you know, some of them are very nice, but it's, you know, someone who like stumbles, hits their head on a rock and they found God and it's rated G, and those are fine. I'm not putting, but that's not going to have the same widespread cultural impact outside of, as you said, a niche audience as a film like this that deals with the actual threat of radical Islam and what it means to confront it. So it doesn't have to be conservative films in the sense of that family-friendly fare that can be a little bit not dealing with other parts of the world that we have to. So is the goal here for you, if this continues to work, would you want to do this again, expand this out and tell stories that will tackle these contemporary mindset, but from a a traditional and conservative perspective of just morality, good guys, bad guys, and history?
Yeah, for me, the really great conservative movies don't wear the label conservative. There are movies like Braveheart and Chariots of Fire and The Deer Hunter. Now, those are movies from a different era, so we have to make movies that are in our current era. You have to sort of surf on the wave, if you will. So my goal and my wife Debbie's is to create a virtual studio where we can do one of these movies a year. But in order to do that, we have to create a sort of financial model that is viable. We have to make sure that there is an audience for these movies and that our types of people would like to go to these types of movies that are not. I mean, Jim Caviezel was on Shannon Bream a couple of days ago. He goes, well, this is no candy-ass Christian movie. And he's right. She was a little shocked, but I think what he was trying to say is that this is a movie that is immersed in the culture. You're going to make a movie about terrorism and radical Islam. It's got to talk and feel and sound like what that world is really like.
Speaking of Dinesh D'Souza, author, filmmaker, among many other things. Dinesh, you've also got the Trump card out, which no explanation needed as to why that's timely. But how is that doing? And do you feel like it's having the intended impact as we're in really right now this last major effort of the Trump campaign?
Well, Trump Card is new, and that is going to be available on all platforms October 9th. I decided not to release that in the theater. Some theaters are still closed. I didn't want it to be where people in some parts of the country couldn't see the movie. And so we're releasing it on Apple iTunes, on Google Play, on Dish, on Amazon Prime. So everyone will be able to see it. And I think it's the best of my movies. It's emotionally very powerful. It couldn't be more timely. It's based on my book, United States of Socialism. So socialism is the threat. I think, we look at all this radicalism of the left, burning things, harassing people in restaurants, the deep state machinations. Those are the means. But what is the goal? The goal is United States of Socialism. And I think Trump is the leader of the fight against it. And I decided to call the movie Trump Card for the simple reason that the whole election debate, the whole political debate, not just in America, but worldwide, revolves around this one man, Donald Trump.
What are you thinking for this election, Dinesh? How are we looking?
It's really hard for me to see how a ridiculous cardboard figure like Biden could make it across the finish line. I recognize there are very powerful forces that want to drag him over the finish line. And the Democrats have a big army of ventriloquists and puppeteers who put out his tweets and fill up his teleprompter and literally are trying to carry him across. But how the Democrats ended up with this preposterous candidate, is a mystery. Trump, I think, Trump doesn't have the economy that he had before COVID, but I think he has the argument that he's the only one who knows how to bring it back. And I'm looking for a big Trump win in November.
Dinesh D'Souza, everybody, go check out Infidel in theaters near you if you can. That's out right now. And also you have the Trump Card coming out. You can download and watch that one. Dinesh, where's the best place to go to watch the Trump Card?
Just go to trumpcardthemovie.com and it'll list all the platforms. You can pre-order the DVD. It's really going to be everywhere October 9th, so there'll be almost a month to watch it before the election. Infidel is now in almost 2,000 theaters, and you can just go to infidel911.com and plug in your zip code. It'll tell you where it's playing, and you can buy a ticket right there.
And Dinesh, Braveheart is my all-time favorite movie, so if you decide to make a sequel at D'Souza Studios, you let me know. I want to help, all right?
For sure.
Thanks so much, Dinesh. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, that is very concerning to me. I mean, we have always said that, myself and Dr. Deborah Birx, who's the coordinator of the task force, that is something we really need to be careful about, because when you're dealing with community spread and you have the kind of congregate setting where people get together, particularly without masks, you're really asking for trouble. Now's the time, actually, to double down a bit. And I don't mean close. When I say that, people get concerned that we're talking about shutting down. We're not talking about shutting anything down. We're talking about common sense type of public health measures that we've been talking about all along.
No, that's actually not what you're talking about. Fauci is way outside his lane on all this stuff, folks. We already know what he thinks. We have the guidance. Now it's us, the American people, and through our legislative bodies, to execute on what the guidance is and to look at the numbers and the data and come up with intelligent responses to it. Because he'll say, oh, I'm not saying shut down. Okay, jackass, explain this to me. How can you have bars and restaurants not shut down when, if you're going to have masks even mandated indoors, everyone's dropping the mask to eat and drink, you idiot? So what are your options? Shut down or let people go. That's it. There's no third option. But there's this make-believe of, oh, but maybe we'll wear the masks when we go to the bathroom, or we'll go to the mask when they sit us down at our table, but then we'll sit there with the mask down for 2 hours while we eat, breathing, laughing, talking. They're trying to regulate human behavior in ways they simply can't do. It's not going to work. But you know what their big fear is here? They tell us that this is reckless. Imagine what happens if Florida, which is now open without restriction. New York hasn't even opened restaurants for indoor dining yet, folks. It's almost October. Florida's saying, all right, businesses, go to it. What if they're okay? You have to remember, they don't want anyone to be able to definitively test and prove their theories wrong. That's a huge risk. It's a risk to their professional reputations, to their power, to their prestige. The people who've been pushing for this stuff, they'll do anything. I mean, they're letting you continue to suffer with these idiotic mandates, letting you continue to be miserable. If it means it protects their reputation, they're on board for that. That's no problem. That's an easy decision for them to make. Even when we see circumstances like this continue to play out, this is only going to get worse, friends. You have a guy in Maryland. Here you go. Man gets 1 year in jail for holding large parties against COVID-19 rules. They're locking this person up. Sean Myers, 42 years old, held 2 parties in a week at his home. 50 people. I'm going to say this right now. I threw parties when I was in college where there were at least, 200, 300 people that showed up. Oh, yeah. Papa Buck knew how to get down. But 50 people is not a big party. You know, that's like a standard house party in New York City in our small apartments. That's not that big. So officers found 50 people at his home. They told him his party violated rules. Myers argued with officers, eventually agreed to disband the party, prosecutors said. Days later, officers came back to his home, another party with 50 people there. He was argumentative with them. Myers told his guests to stay in defiance of Governor Hogan's orders. And officers tried to reason with Myers. He was then arrested. He faces up to a year in prison. He will be on supervised probation for 3 years, prosecutors say. I mean, folks, this is absurd. This is what I mean by, you have a right to peaceably assemble. They've taken this away from you. Now, BLM can do whatever the heck it wants, right? BLM can gather thousands. While the pandemic is raging, they can gather together anywhere they want. And police are there to protect them, protect their First Amendment rights. But you want to have over a couple of dozen people to your house? You'll get arrested. This is tyranny. I have to keep saying it. This is unacceptable. They do not have the right to do this. They do not have the science to back this up. This is nuts. I mean, notice how you've heard a little bit less about, oh my gosh, colleges, all the spikes at colleges. You know why? People at college get this disease, and they're fine. Same way the people at college age, get the flu. I got the flu when I was in college. Felt like I got hit by a truck, but I was fine after about a week. This is what happened. This is life. But all the media hysteria, oh my gosh, they're opening schools. Yeah, they've opened schools. It's fine. Europe has had schools open K through 8th grade for going on months now. They're fine. It depends on the European country you have to look at. But overall, the schools are open there. So what are we doing with this continued madness? Well, I'm telling you right now, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. If Biden takes over, they're going to institute even more severe COVID regulations. National mask mandate. Think about a Democrat Party that's just won an election and that has scores to settle and that has a health excuse in its mind, a health excuse to shut down any business it wants, any activity it wants at any time, no questions asked. You think the Democrat Party, you think that the Biden administration isn't going to abuse that? Well, I mean, if anyone who believes that just isn't paying attention, doesn't understand who or what we are really dealing with here. They are absolutely going to abuse that authority. And they're going to make people beg for their freedom back. And even then, once we've been begging for our freedom back, let's understand that it's not going to be enough. We're going to have to do what they want. They're going to use this for policy purposes. They're going to have to use this to get us, to get through things that they want. And only then, after about a year of it, will they think about relenting. And they're going to keep this in their back pocket. Health emergency. You see the health emergency over COVID-19. They're going to declare that climate change is a health emergency. We got a bad hurricane. Oh, it's a threat to life and limb. There's a climate change emergency. They see too many shootings happen, or if there's let's say a really bad school shooting, oh, it's a health emergency. Got to seize your assault rifles. Got to seize them. You know that they're going to do this. I mean, this is what's coming our way. And I think this should be a much bigger issue for people in this election. They're going to ruin the economy. And they're going to do so thinking that they're heroes and that they're brave because, remember, the Democrats that are rich are fine and they can work remotely and they're not worried about this at all. The bureaucrats and the government employees, they're fine. They keep their jobs. The taxpayers still keep them afloat. And the dependent class will, in a new Democrat administration, I'm sure, just start getting, $600 a week or whatever it is, and they've got their universal basic income. So, you have what people are calling, I think they call it a K-shaped recovery now, where some people are doing just fine out of the pandemic, and other people are getting in worse and worse shape, getting further behind on bills. That's what's going to be exacerbated in a Democrat administration for sure. The Democrat elites will be just fine. They'll be great. No worries. And they'll walk around wearing a mask. They'll be bicycle riding by themselves in the woods wearing a mask, out in the middle of the ocean on a boat, a rowboat, no one around for miles wearing a mask like idiots. This is what they're going to be doing. And the country is going to suffer, and small businesses in particular, which are always, Democrats view small business owners as a little bit defiant to the order of the state. They'd much rather have corporations because corporations are more within the collectivist ethos of the Democrat Party that can be controlled from the top down much more easily. But small businesses are getting crushed right now, and Democrats don't care. They don't care. And Fauci, in a just world, he would have been fired months ago, but political liability, I suppose, is too much right now.
It's time for roll call.
Roll call. Let's get to it. Brad, first up in the roll call mix. Hey, Buck and Producer Mark. I was wondering if you noticed what the mainstream media has done with regard to African Americans. A year ago, we as a country were at a place where they were referred to as African Americans. That was the acceptable term. A few days before George Floyd's death, Joe Biden said the infamous line, if you can't choose me over Trump, you ain't black. From that moment forward, the media immediately dropped the term African American and went with black as if they wanted to normalize the term and dilute just how racist his statement really was. I feel that statement in the mainstream media's response to how Biden has been a giant step backward for our African American community shields high. Brad, I'll be honest with you, I haven't noticed that at all. I think that people use African American and black pretty interchangeably. I haven't seen a change in that regard. So I'd say take another look at this one and give a little more thought to whether, sometimes we perceive a connection without understanding all of the corollaries to it and think it's a stronger connection than it is. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't see it. But I do appreciate you writing in, and I watch language issues very closely here. Obviously, the change from from illegal alien to undocumented immigrant to undocumented. Just that's the word now we use, undocumented. So the language changes are very important. Not something we should ignore. And yeah, I do think that there's a long-standing practice where people think that African American is more respectful to say, perhaps, or at least can have a more formal, more perhaps more than a respectful connotation for members of the black community. But I mean, if we're going to refer to white people all the time, I think, we don't sit around saying Caucasian American or anything like that. I think we can say black and we can say white. And people do use the term brown now. That's very widespread on the left. People say black and brown communities. I think it's interesting. I think that there was a time when referring to someone as from a brown community would have been considered a little bit borderline. But now it's used wide. But then again, you also have communities of color or person of color is fine and is often said, and I mean on the left and in the news media, but well, you can say it with the of in the middle, but if you flip it around and just do the possessive version of it, an adjective version of it, right? Instead of a person of color, that's not allowed. That's considered rude. By the way, Producer Mark, how was your weekend? We didn't get to check in on Producer Mark. How you doing, buddy?
It was good. Solid weekend. How about yours?
It was nice. Relaxed. Played a little tennis. Moved around a little bit. Went to the gym. So
I should do that.
Feels good afterwards. Helps you sleep at night, I gotta say. Took the dog for some nice walks. Amazing how much nicer people are to the dog than to me. They all see the dog and they smile and they want to pet the dog and they look up at me. They're like, "Yeah, where's your mask?" I'm always like, "Whoa, maybe the dog's so nice because I'm so nice. Maybe people should think of it that way."
I mean, I think whether you were wearing a mask or not, I would always react more favorably to a dog than a person.
A lot of people do. Especially because she has this one tooth that sticks out very prominently and makes her look sort of, I don't know, more bulldog-like. So people get excited about that. But yeah, no, it was a pretty mellow weekend. So, all right. Any big sports stuff this week? Is there a football tonight?
Yeah, there's a very good game on tonight. Chiefs and Ravens, probably the two best teams in the league.
Well, there you go. As long as they don't kneel beforehand, maybe some folks will watch. Jimmy! Buck, I think Sleepy Joe is sleeping during the day and waking up around 7 or 8 at night in preparation for the debate. By sleeping all day and waking up at night, they're trying to have him feel like it is only 9 a.m. and not 9 p.m., so he'll be awake for the debate. They've probably replaced all the windows in his basement with TV screens so they can have the moon and stars appear to Joe during the day and have bright sunshine, clouds, and birds chirping at night. Tell Producer Mark, go Mets. Well, go Mets. There you go. You heard that.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. And as for Sleepy Joe, yeah, he's not really doing much of a campaign. It's pretty obvious at this point. Not a lot of interest in Sleepy Joe telling people what his plans are for America for the future. It's just make him president because they say so, because the libs demand it. So we'll see. We'll see. Jake writes, Buck, I love your show and listen daily. You are killing me with your commentary on the Breonna Taylor death. Serving warrants in the middle of the night is immoral. No-knock warrants are immoral. Both of those things will continue until cops are held personally responsible for the damage they cause in serving those warrants. With regard to the reckless endangerment charges, I also disagree with you. Every round a person fires has their name on it until the projectile stops. That fact doesn't change based on the shooter's line of work. Well, Jake, let's understand something, that the rounds that the cops fired in the Breonna Taylor situation, the cop who has been charged was charged for rounds that went through a wall and went into the next apartment, not for hitting Breonna Taylor. So what exactly is, the rounds went through the wall? I don't know. I mean, now you're saying if the cops fire and they miss, they're going to go to prison? I mean, that's quite a high standard to have. And they were under fire, too. It's not like they just pulled their guns for no reason and were shooting and being irresponsible with it. As for no-knock warrants, okay, but I mean, Jake, you should ask some friends in law enforcement, some people you know who work in law enforcement, what happens when you are, let's say, with the U.S. Marshal Service and you're going to serve a high-risk warrant on somebody who's a, convicted felon who may have weapons and drugs inside. You say, okay, everybody. One, they'll probably try to destroy, especially the drug evidence that they have, flush it down the toilet, any number of things. And two, they may say, okay, cops at the door, and they start, loading up their pump-action shotgun. They start loading up that Glock or whatever their handgun of choice would be, and set up for the cops to come through that door. That's happened. There are cops who know that they've been shot, especially serving high-risk warrants, because they gave notice to the felon inside. And so it's not as easy as just that it's immoral and it's bad. The element of surprise is very helpful in these things. Now, they should be reserved for high-risk situations. They should be reserved for somebody with a history of either violence or high-level drug trafficking or something. I agree with that. But to get rid of them entirely, I don't know. Maybe some of our Team Buck law enforcement can weigh in here. We have so many fantastic police officers, law enforcement across the country that listen to the show. What do you think? Do you guys and gals want to get rid of no-knock warrants? I've never served a warrant, so I just know about this in an academic and an analyst sense. But to me, it seems, and the other thing about serving in the middle of the night is that usually yes, you're disturbing their sleep, but they're less likely to react in a hostile, go for a gun manner if they know that they're cops, at least, because they're usually pretty groggy. I mean, if somebody came into my apartment at 3 o'clock in the morning knocking on the door, I'd be very out of it. So I'm just putting out the different perspectives on this one. But if I hear from enough law enforcement folks that they think they're not necessary and they're a bad idea, I am always open to persuasion, friends. Next up, we've got Dean. Hello, Buck. Love the show. Listen every day at the gym. I totally understand it's highly unlikely that the Durham probe will result in convictions. However, why doesn't Barr pull a page out of their playbook and make the process the punishment? Bankrupt these fools and pull their names through the mud like they do to all their victims. It's time that he gets dirty and plays dirty. What are your thoughts? Dean, that's just not who this Attorney General is. He's gonna play it by the book. Now, he's not going to get bullied, right? If by the book you're in trouble, I think with this AG, you're in trouble. But he's not gonna play games with the law. Even if it would be political justice, it has to be justice under our legal system. It can't be something that we like. We're not going to play the game the way the libs do. And this Attorney General's not going to do that. As for the Durham probe, yeah, folks, you guys know. I mean, one of the reasons I think a lot of you listen to this show, and I appreciate that, and you've told me this before, is on so many of these questions, I just see it coming, and I'm right. And I've been right on the Durham probe all along. I've been saying, guys, don't expect there to be, and this just reminds me of what I used to say about Benghazi. Once Obama won re-election on Benghazi, I was like, well, any chance for justice on Benghazi is pretty much gone now. So you got Trey Gowdy out there holding all those hearings, Mr. Speaker, making a lot of noise. But what exactly did Trey Gowdy do other than recently defend Comey and the FBI against all facts and evidence? That guy and I got a bone to pick with Trey. I'm not happy about that. But they had all these hearings and all this Benghazi stuff, and I just said, and people didn't want to hear it. They're, oh no, we're gonna get. Hillary, they're going to get it. Nope, they will not. They will not. Because I understand how the system works. I understand how where the bureaucracy is strong, and it's particularly strong when it comes to protecting the bureaucracy. So if somebody is an integral part of it, has connections enough inside of it, they'll close ranks and they'll protect that person. They do it all the time. They'll feed you some low-level nobodies to make a political point, but they're not going to let you get after any of the big people. So, yeah, I don't think the Durham probe is going to be – I don't think it's going to be much of anything. And we already – with those text messages that came out, thanks to Sidney Powell in the case with Michael Flynn, because of the text message, we already know. We already know the FBI was running a scam. We already know that what they were doing was illegitimate, and they were aware it was illegitimate, and the whole thing was appalling. So, yeah, there we go. Pablo, hey, Buck, shields high. When RBG passed away on Friday, I was torn about Trump filling the seat. I thought that he could use this as a campaign promise like he did in 2016. After thinking about how the Democrats have pulled out all the stops for the past 4 years, I can't see taking any chances with this seat. As a conservative, I like to fight fair, but if this is not reciprocated, you have to get dirty, too. P.S. I'm not watching any sports because I choose not to because of the stance they're all taking against the country. I, however, do not think that everyone should join my boycott. You do you, Producer Mark. Producer Mark, Pablo gives you permission to do you.
I appreciate that, Pablo. Thank you very much.
Yeah. As for the RBG seat, I think that we just get this thing done, signed, sealed, and delivered. I think delay is the enemy here. I think get it done right away. But I'm also seeing there's a real silence from the left here. But remember that was the truth with Kavanaugh as well. Kavanaugh was going to sail through. It was going to be fine. And then at the last minute in the hearings is when they introduced the whole, what was her? I can't remember her name now. Producer Mark, what was the name of the first woman who came out? I can't remember her name. I can't believe I'm blanking on her. Anyway, I remember the other names in the case. And so the woman who came out and accused Producer Nick, what was the woman who came out and accused Kavanaugh of
Christine Blasey Ford.
Thank you, Christine Blasey Ford. So, yeah, she came out, and that was late in that process, and it was meant to throw it into disarray at the last minutes, then people would get shaky. So just because right now it seems like there's this pathetic stuff is all they've got about, adoption, all of a sudden adoption's not a good thing. These people are maniacs, folks. They're maniacs. But that doesn't mean that will be enough to stop this. So just remember that. Saul, I have a question for America. Why haven't we heard anything about COVID-19 numbers rising after all these massive Trump rallies? If there was any increase, the libs would be screaming about that. Maybe COVID isn't what it seems to be. Also, I wanted to say I'm a big fan of your show. Found out from an ad while listening to Rush. Been telling my friends about it. Shields high. Thank you, Saul. That's great. And we love that people listen to Rush's show are getting a little bit of buck action here. Well, that makes me very happy. Please pass the buck, Saul. Tell friends about it. And this is the next generation of great talk radio here. Brian writes, Producer Mark, you're my favorite. Do we think Brian's buttering you up, Mark?
Just a little bit.
But I have to tell you that cooking burgers is grilling and not barbecue. Buck, a friend of mine had a celebrity chef over to visit, and he talked me through your reverse sear on the grill by first smoking the steak, then searing over wood or charcoal. You should try it sometime. Brian, that sounds great. But don't I have to get a smoker to do that?
Yeah, low and slow.
Yeah. Yeah, I live in New York City, man. We're not even allowed to have propane grills if you have outdoor space here. Not even allowed to have that. Jay, Buck, some people say we need the hearings to give the Dems a chance to show Americans just how disgusting they are. This weekend, we saw how evil they are with their attacks. There is no need at all to subject her to a full frontal assault. I'll go a step further. Putting her out there for the sole purpose of just being bait for leftist attacks for political means is evil. No hearings, just vote. Love the show. Jay, thank you. We love you. And yes, I obviously am saying this to everybody who will listen. I think it is a mistake to put her in this position. And you never know what they're going to try to cook up. You never know. I think they're going to go with something about her being anti-gay, and about her being some kind of religious extremist to try to separate it from just being a normal, being a standard, I should say, Catholic. That's what I think is going to happen. Here we go. So anyway, that's what I see. They're gonna go with, though, that she's anti-gay, and I think that the left will get very energized over that. I don't see what else there is. I mean, there are certain things. Look, they would usually say they would do the whole, if it was a guy, he's a rapist and he's a racist. Those are the left's two favorite attacks against white male conservatives, rapist and racist. That's what they like to do. They'll lie about it. They don't care. The rapist thing, for obvious reasons, probably not going to work very well with Amy Coney Barrett. And the racist thing, given her two children from Haiti that she adopted, they'll say it, but I don't think that that's going to resonate because it's so dishonest. But we'll see, friends. We'll see. They've got plans. We just don't know what they are yet. We got to stay in this fight until the very end. Shields high.